She was hunted until a cowboy stood between her and death. She once believed that a quiet life was a kind of safety. The woman lived in a small town where people nodded when they passed and asked polite questions they did not truly want answered. Her days followed a simple pattern. She woke early, worked hard, and came home before dark. Nothing about her life invited trouble. That was why it took so long for her to understand that something was wrong. At first, it was only a feeling. The kind that made her look over her shoulder when no one was there. The kind that made her lock the door twice, then check it again before bed. She told herself she was tired. She told herself everyone felt this way sometimes, but the feeling stayed. Then small things began to change. Her phone rang, and when she answered, no one spoke. When she called back, the number did not exist. A car she did not recognize sat across the street one evening, engine running, lights off. When she stepped outside, it drove away slowly, as if it had all the time in the world. She laughed it off in front of others, but alone, her hands shook. She stopped taking the same road home. She avoided places she used to love. Her world began to shrink, not because she wanted it to, but because fear slowly pushed the walls closer. She tried to tell herself that she was imagining things. That would have been easier, but fear does not come without reason. It builds from patterns, from moments that do not make sense alone but become clear when placed together. She began to notice the same footsteps behind her more than once. She saw the same shape in reflections of windows. Someone knew where she worked. Someone knew when she was alone. Sleep became hard. When she did sleep, she woke suddenly, heart racing, convinced she had heard something. The night no longer felt quiet. It felt watchful. She told a friend once carefully without using the word fear. The friend smiled and said she was just stressed. Another friend suggested a break, a vacation, as if distance could erase a problem that already knew her name. Slowly, the woman learned an important truth. Danger feels loneliest when no one believes it exists. One afternoon, she returned home to find her door slightly open. Nothing was taken. Nothing was moved. That was what frightened her most. Whoever had been there had not come to steal. They had come to remind her that they could enter her life whenever they wished. That night she packed a small bag, not to leave forever, just to be ready. She placed it by the door and told herself she was being smart, not scared. Still, her hands trembled as she zipped it closed. The next days were worse. The feeling of being watched became constant. It followed her like a shadow she could not step away from. She stopped answering unknown calls. She avoided talking to strangers. Even familiar faces began to feel unsafe because she no longer knew who might know what about her. She asked herself again and again why this was happening. She searched her past for mistakes, for moments she wished she could undo. The truth was simple and cruel. Sometimes danger does not come because of what a person does, but because of who they are, or what they know, or where they happen to stand when someone else wants control. When the message came, it did not arrive with loud threats or dramatic words. It was short. It was calm. It told her enough to make one thing clear. This was not in her head. Someone wanted her afraid. Someone wanted her to run. And she did. She left before sunrise, taking only what she could carry. She did not tell anyone where she was going because she did not know herself. She chose roads that felt empty and towns where no one asked questions. Each mile put distance between her and the place she once called home, but fear traveled with her, sitting beside her like an unwanted passenger. She stayed in cheap rooms and quiet houses. She slept lightly, listening for sounds that did not belong. She learned to trust her instincts because they had already proven right. Still, no matter how far she went, the sense of pursuit did not fade. It was not about distance. It was about intent. Money grew tight. Exhaustion settled deep into her bones. She began to look older than her years, not because of time, but because of constant worry. Mirrors showed a version of herself she barely recognized. Her eyes no longer held ease. They held alertness. One evening, as the sky darkened, she realized something that chilled her more than any message or shadow. Running had not stopped what was coming. It had only changed the location. She pulled over on a quiet road, hands gripping the wheel, and finally let herself cry. Not loudly, just enough to release the pressure she had been holding inside. Tears fell for the life she had lost, for the safety she once believed was normal, and for the simple joy of not being afraid. When she looked up, the road stretched on, empty and wide. She had no plan beyond the next mile, no promise of protection, no one standing between her and whatever followed. That was the moment she understood the truth of her situation. She was not just afraid, she was being hunted. And somewhere ahead, though she did not know it yet, a single choice made by another person would change everything. The cowboy had lived most of his life listening more than speaking. The land had taught him that. Wide fields, slow mornings, long evenings where the wind carried stories if a person paid attention. He worked with animals, fixed fences, and kept his world small and steady. Trouble did not usually find him, and he did not go looking for it. That changed the day he saw her. She arrived late in the afternoon, driving a car that had seen too many roads. Dust clung to it like it had nowhere else to go. She parked near the edge of the property, as if unsure whether she was allowed to be there. When she stepped out, the cowboy noticed the way she moved. Careful, alert, like someone who expected danger to appear at any second. He did not rush toward her. He simply watched. Years of working alone had sharpened his senses. He noticed how her eyes scanned the open space before settling on him. He noticed the way her shoulders stayed tight, even when she tried to stand straight. This was not someone passing through without reason. This was someone running. She asked if there was work. Her voice was calm, but the calm felt practiced, like a mask worn too often. The cowboy told her there was always something that needed doing, even if it was small. He did not ask many questions. People who are afraid do not need pressure. They need space. She thanked him more than once, as if kindness surprised her. Over the next days, she stayed. She worked quietly, keeping to herself. She cleaned, helped where she could, and never complained. At night, the cowboy noticed lights on long after others slept. Sometimes he heard her footsteps moving softly, checking doors, checking windows. She thought she was careful enough not to be seen doing it. She was wrong. He did not confront her. Instead, he watched the land. The cowboy began to notice signs that did not belong, tire tracks near the road that were not there before. A gate left open that he always kept closed. Once, early in the morning, he found a footprint near the fence that did not match his boots or anyone else's. The land spoke clearly to him. Someone else was paying attention too. One evening, he saw her standing at the far end of the field, staring at the road. Her hands were clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. She did not hear him approach. "You're safe here," he said gently, not too close, not too loud. She flinched anyway. She did not answer right away. When she did, her words were careful. She did not explain much. She only said that she had trouble before and she did not want it to follow her. She asked how long she could stay. "As long as you need," the cowboy replied. He meant it more than he realized. That night he did not sleep well. He walked the fence line instead, checking the dark. The stars were bright, but his thoughts were heavy. He had lived long enough to know that trouble rarely arrives without warning. And when it does, it never comes alone. The next day, a stranger drove slowly past the property. The cowboy saw the car from a distance. It did not stop. It did not need to. Its presence was enough. The woman noticed it too. Her face drained of color and she turned away quickly. That was when the cowboy understood. This was not just fear left over from the past. This was something still moving. He spoke to her that evening, offering food and quiet company. He did not push for details. Instead, he talked about the land, the animals, the weather. Simple things, safe things. Slowly her shoulders relaxed, just a little. Still, she did not sleep much. One morning she asked him why he helped her. The question caught him off guard. He shrugged and said it was the right thing to do. She looked at him for a long time, as if trying to decide whether to believe that someone could help without wanting something in return. Trust, he knew, did not come quickly to someone like her. As days passed, the tension grew. The cowboy felt it in the air. He began locking things he had never locked before. He kept his phone close. He planned his movements not out of fear but out of readiness. The land had given him strength, but it had also taught him caution. One evening, the woman finally spoke. Not in long stories, not in full truth, but enough. She explained that she had seen something she was never meant to see. That powerful people did not want her to speak. That silence was not enough for them. They wanted her gone. The cowboy listened without interrupting. When she finished, she waited, bracing herself for disbelief or rejection. Neither came. Instead, he nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to face this alone," he said. She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Alone is all I know now." He looked out at the land, wide and open, and made a decision that could not be undone. He would not send her away. He would not pretend he saw nothing. Whatever came next, he would face it standing up. That night, the wind carried a sound that did not belong. An engine, distant but deliberate. The cowboy stepped outside, hand resting on the fence post, eyes fixed on the dark road. Behind him, the woman stood frozen, knowing without being told that the past had finally found her again. And this time, she was no longer standing alone. Morning came quietly, but the calm felt false. The kind of calm that sits heavy, like the world holding its breath. The cowboy woke before sunrise, as he always did, but this time his thoughts were already awake. He stepped outside and studied the land. Nothing looked different, yet everything felt changed. The woman was already up. She stood near the window, holding a cup she had not touched. Her eyes followed every movement outside, every shadow, every sound. Sleep had barely visited her. Fear had kept watch instead. They did not speak much at first. Words felt unnecessary. Both of them understood that something had shifted. The past was no longer behind her. It had reached the gate. As the day moved on, signs became clearer. A neighbor mentioned seeing unfamiliar vehicles on the nearby road. An animal was restless, spooked by something unseen. Small details, but the cowboy knew how to read them. Someone was testing the edges. Someone was watching. The woman finally spoke more openly, though still carefully. She explained that she once worked a normal job, lived a normal life, until she noticed things that did not add up. Conversations that ended too suddenly. Actions that did not match words. She had asked questions. That had been her mistake. She did not give names. She did not need to. Power, she said, often hides behind silence. The people who wanted her quiet did not shout. They waited. The cowboy listened, his face steady. Inside, he felt anger rise, slow and controlled. He had seen unfairness before. He had seen how strong people pushed others aside simply because they could. He had never liked it then. He liked it even less now. "You did nothing wrong," he said simply. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. Tears felt like a luxury she could not afford. As the day passed, the cowboy prepared. Not loudly, not with panic. He checked fences again. He spoke to a trusted neighbor without sharing too much. He kept his movements normal because calm often unsettles those who expect fear. The woman watched him, confused by his steadiness. She had expected anger, maybe even regret for helping her. Instead, she saw quiet resolve. It frightened her in a different way. She did not want him hurt because of her. That evening, she told him she should leave. She said it would be safer if she kept moving. She had survived this long by not staying anywhere too long. The cowboy shook his head. "Running hasn't stopped them," he said. "It's just made you tired." The words struck her deeply. She knew they were true. Still, fear whispered to her. She imagined the danger spreading, touching his life, his land, everything he had built. Guilt pressed against her chest. "I won't forgive myself if something happens to you," she said. He looked at her then, really looked at her. Not as someone hiding, but as someone who had been forced into hiding. Sometimes, he said, standing still is the only way forward. That night the sound returned. A vehicle slowed near the road, engine low. The cowboy stepped out first, calm but alert. He did not cross the boundary of his land. He did not shout. He simply stood where he could be seen. The vehicle paused, then moved on. The woman watched from the window, heart racing. She had never seen someone face danger without shaking. It did not mean he was fearless. It meant he was choosing courage over fear. After that night, she changed too. She stopped apologizing for existing. She stopped shrinking her presence. She helped more around the property, not as repayment, but as partnership. She learned the rhythms of the land, the habits of the animals. Work gave her moments where fear loosened its grip. They talked more, about simple things at first, then about deeper ones. Loss, trust, the weight of choices. She realized that the cowboy carried his own past, his own quiet regrets. Strength, she learned, often comes from surviving things no one else sees. Days passed, tense but steady. Then one afternoon, a stranger arrived at the gate. The cowboy saw him first. A man dressed too neatly for the area, smiled too practiced. He claimed to be looking for someone, asking casual questions. The cowboy answered politely but vaguely. The stranger's eyes shifted toward the house, searching. The woman felt it immediately. The pressure. The certainty. This was one of them. She stood behind the cowboy, her presence visible. She did not hide. The stranger's smile tightened. He said a few more harmless words, then left. When he was gone, silence settled heavily. "They know I'm here," she said. "Yes," the cowboy replied, "and now they know I won't hand you over." Fear surged through her again, but it was different this time. It mixed with something else. Resolve. That night she barely slept, but instead of lying frozen, she thought. She thought about the running, the hiding, the years stolen by fear. She thought about how tired she was of being chased. By morning, she made a decision. She told the cowboy everything she knew, not fragments, not hints, the full truth. It was painful. It brought back memories she wished she could forget, but she spoke anyway. When she finished, she expected him to tell her it was too much, that it was beyond him. Instead, he took a long breath and nodded. "Truth has weight," he said, "but lies weigh more." From that moment, they were no longer just hiding. They were preparing. The cowboy reached out to the right people carefully, wisely. He documented what he could. He advised patience, not panic. The woman followed his lead, even when fear told her to flee. Outside, pressure increased. Vehicles passed more often. Unknown numbers appeared on phones, unanswered. The sense of being watched never fully left, but something had changed. The woman no longer felt like prey. She felt like someone standing her ground. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with quiet fire, she stood beside the cowboy at the edge of the field. The land stretched wide and open, honest in a way people often were not. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For not turning away." He nodded once, eyes on the horizon. "Some lines," he said, "shouldn't be crossed." In the distance, dust rose along the road again, a sign that the waiting was almost over. The past was done circling. It was coming straight toward them now. The day arrived without warning. No loud signs, no sudden noise, just a feeling in the air that told both of them the waiting was over. The cowboy sensed it before he saw anything. The land felt tense, like it did before a storm. Animals were restless. Birds lifted suddenly from the fence line. Even the wind felt different, moving slower, heavier. The woman felt it too. Her chest tightened the moment she stepped outside. Fear returned, sharp and familiar, but this time it did not control her. She had expected this day. Dread had prepared her. By late morning, a vehicle appeared on the road and stopped near the gate. Then another. They did not rush. They did not shout. That calm was what made it dangerous. The cowboy stood at the front of the property, relaxed but alert. He did not reach for anything. He did not show anger. He simply stood where he belonged, solid and unmoving like the land itself. The woman stood behind him, visible, no longer hiding inside. Her hands trembled slightly, but she stayed where she was. She would not disappear again. The people who arrived spoke politely at first. Their voices were smooth. Their words sounded reasonable. They said they wanted to talk. They said there had been a misunderstanding. They said they could help fix things. The cowboy listened without interrupting. He had learned long ago that people often reveal their true purpose if given enough space. When they finished speaking, he replied calmly. He told them they were on private land. He told them the woman was not leaving with them. He told them any further contact would be handled the right way, not their way. The smiles faded. The tone changed. They tried pressure next. They spoke about consequences, about trouble, about how things could become difficult. They hinted at power without naming it. They expected fear to work. It did not. The cowboy stepped slightly forward, placing himself clearly between them and the woman. His stance was not aggressive. It was firm, final. "She's staying," he said. "That's the end of it." For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched thin. Then one of them laughed softly, as if amused. He said the cowboy did not understand what he was stepping into, that some fights could not be won. The cowboy met his gaze without blinking. "Some fights aren't about winning," he said. "They're about refusing to step aside." That was the moment everything shifted. The visitors realized they would not succeed easily. They exchanged looks, then stepped back toward their vehicles. But this time the calm felt forced, controlled. They were not finished. As they left, the woman felt her knees weaken. The danger had not passed. It had only changed shape. That afternoon, things moved quickly. Calls were made. The cowboy contacted the people he trusted, the ones who knew how to handle matters properly. The woman did her part too. She shared records, messages, details she had kept locked away out of fear. Speaking them out loud felt like releasing weight she had carried for too long. The pressure increased as the day went on. Vehicles passed again. Phones buzzed with silent calls. The sense of being watched returned stronger than before. By evening, it was clear the situation would not fade quietly. That was when the cowboy made a decision that would define everything. He told the woman that if they returned, he would stand openly in front. No hiding. No running. Everything would be visible, clear, honest. She tried to argue. She told him it was too dangerous, that she could leave, disappear again. The old fear tried to reclaim her voice. He shook his head. "You've run enough," he said. "And I won't let them chase you off my land." The sun dipped low as they waited. The sky turned deep orange, then purple. Shadows stretched long across the ground. Then the vehicles returned. This time they came with authority they believed could not be questioned. Their confidence was sharper, louder. The cowboy stepped forward again, placing himself squarely between them and the woman. His body became a line that could not be crossed. Voices rose. Accusations were made. Threats were suggested without being spoken plainly. The woman's heart pounded, but she stayed where she was. She watched the cowboy stand steady, unshaken. And then something unexpected happened. Others arrived. People the cowboy had contacted earlier. People who believed in doing things the right way. Their presence changed the balance. Suddenly, the visitors were no longer in control of the scene. The conversation shifted. The confidence drained. Words became careful. The truth began to surface piece by piece. The woman listened as facts replaced pressure. As records replaced stories. As calm authority replaced intimidation. She realized then that standing her ground had allowed space for truth to enter. The people who had hunted her no longer looked powerful. They looked exposed. By the time the night fully settled, the threat was gone. Not erased, but stopped. Removed from the moment, pushed back by light they could not control. The vehicles left again, this time without confidence, without promise of return. Silence followed, deep, real. The woman finally allowed herself to breathe. She felt weak. She felt exhausted. But beneath it all, something new stirred. Relief, safety. A fragile hope she had almost forgotten. The cowboy did not celebrate, he did not boast. He simply leaned against the fence and watched the stars appear one by one. Later, as they sat quietly, the woman spoke. Her voice shook, but her words were steady. "I thought standing still would break me," she said, "but it didn't." He nodded. Fear loses power when it's faced. She looked out at the land, wide and open, no longer feeling like a trap. For the first time in a long while, the night felt quiet again, not watchful, just quiet. She knew healing would take time, that echoes of fear would return sometimes. But she also knew something important. She had survived not because she ran faster, but because someone chose to stand between her and what meant her harm, and because she finally chose to stand too. The danger had come, and it had been stopped. The days after everything happened felt strange, like waking up in a place that looked familiar but no longer felt the same. The danger was gone, but its shadow still lingered in quiet moments. The woman noticed it in the way her body reacted to small sounds, in how her eyes still searched every room before she relaxed. Fear does not leave all at once. It leaves slowly, step by step. The cowboy returned to his routines. He fed the animals, repaired what needed fixing, and walked the land like he always had. On the surface, nothing had changed. But inside, he felt the weight of what had happened. Standing between someone and harm leaves a mark, even when the outcome is good. Still, he had no regret. Some choices are heavy, but they are also right. The woman stayed for a while longer. She needed time to rest, to let her thoughts settle. The cowboy did not rush her. He understood that healing cannot be forced. It happens when a person feels safe enough to breathe again. Mornings became quieter in a good way. She began to sleep through the night, waking without panic. She started to notice small things again, like the sound of birds at sunrise or the warmth of sunlight on her face. These moments felt precious, like gifts she had forgotten how to receive. They talked often, but not always about the past. Sometimes they spoke about plans, about simple dreams. Sometimes they sat in silence, which felt just as meaningful. Trust grew not from words, but from consistency. One afternoon, she told the cowboy she was thinking about leaving soon, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted to move forward. She wanted a life that was hers again, not shaped by running or hiding. He nodded, understanding. "You don't owe this place anything," he said. "You already stood your ground." Her eyes filled, but she smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head gently. "You were stronger than you knew." Preparing to leave brought mixed emotions. Part of her wanted to stay where safety had returned. Another part knew that growth meant stepping into the world again, even if it felt uncertain. She packed slowly, more thoughtfully than before. This time, it did not feel like escape. It felt like choice. On her last evening, they shared a simple meal. The sky glowed softly as the sun set, painting the land in calm colors. The woman looked around, knowing this place would always live in her memory as the moment her life turned back toward light. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly. The cowboy thought for a moment. "Live well," he said. "That's thanks enough." When morning came, she stood by her car, ready but hesitant. She took a deep breath, feeling both fear and hope move through her at once. This time hope was stronger. She reached out and hugged him, a brief but heartfelt gesture. Then she stepped back, got into the car and drove away, not looking back until the road curved out of sight. The cowboy watched until the dust settled. Then he turned back to the land, carrying the quiet knowledge that some moments change a person forever, even when life returns to its usual rhythm. For the woman, the road ahead felt open. She took it slowly, allowing herself to feel again. She rebuilt her life piece by piece. She found work, made new connections, and learned to trust her instincts without letting fear rule them. The memories of being hunted did not vanish, but they no longer defined her. Sometimes when the world felt heavy, she remembered the cowboy standing firm, calm, and unyielding. She remembered that courage does not always shout. Sometimes it simply refuses to move. Months passed. Seasons changed. Life continued. The cowboy never heard from her again, and he did not expect to. He did not help for recognition or reward. He helped because it was right, and that was enough. Still, on quiet evenings, he sometimes thought of her. He hoped she was safe. He hoped she was free. And somewhere out there she was. She carried with her the knowledge that even in the darkest moments, a single person's choice can stand between fear and freedom. That lesson stayed with her always. She had been hunted once, but she would never live like prey again.